All right, welcome into SportsBIT Betting Insight today, Wednesday, June 1st. Pauly and Teddy, SBRpicks.com. Big game breakdown, the rematch everyone wanted to see. We preview the NBA Finals. We also have two baseball games to go over, Texas and Cleveland, also the Rays and the Royals. NFL team previews continue, AFC West, Kansas City Chiefs today, and we look to make it 7 out of 8 with the play of the day. Red hot, this is awesome. We start with bad bets. The streak is over. Arrieta gets a no decision, Teddy, and the Cubs bullpen spits it up in the 8th. Cubs big favorites. Cubs held to one hit, and we told you yesterday, Kazmir been on a nice run.
Yeah, it sure was. He pitched brilliantly last night. 6 innings pitched, 1 hit, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Scott Kazmir, something of a bet on hurler right now. Tough beat if you had Chicago. I mean, Arrieta throws 7 scoreless, but as you mentioned, that bullpen behind him was not a good night for the Cubs pen or for their lineup. For that matter, heck of a streak, Arrieta. You've been going since July 2015. What was it, 23 in a row? Huh? Every streak's going to end sometimes. Much better if you've been riding it and lost it than if you just jumped on Arrieta last night for the first time. Can you imagine? Like, I can kill any streak.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Well, look what has to happen for them to get beat. They get one hit, and then the loss, they were no hit by Hamels.
Yeah, that's the truth, though. Exactly. His last 2 losses, 1 hit combined.
Oh, God. More bad bets. James Shields, oh, my God, roughed up. The Padres put some position players in there to pitch. It was 16-0 in the 5th. He gave up 10 earned and 2 2/3.
Yeah, poor Shields. You know, the guy really wanted to get out of San Diego. He's shown his mettle in the postseason before. Remember what a key contributor he was when Kansas City went to the World Series 2 years ago. Went for the money in San Diego. Obviously hasn't worked out from a team perspective. And a guy who's trying to showcase his stuff so he can get moved to a contender, well, guess what? His trade value is getting less and less. He may be stuck in San Diego for a while.
Plenty of bad bets here. Run this down, Tenny. Any of these unders here where one team went over the total by themselves?
Well, yeah, let's see. The Mariners total was 7.5. You just talked about that. Seattle scored 16 in that ball game. The KC total, 7.5. They scored 10 by themselves. The St. Louis Cardinals scored 10. Their total was 9. The Rockies scored 17 by themselves. Their total was 11. And oh, by the way, Angels and Tigers, total in that game was 8.5. Both teams get up and over the total. So, wild night when it comes to the Grand Salami in MLB. Flew over. And, of course, if you were betting any of those unders where one of the lineups really got going, guess what? Those were all bad bets.
Rockies, 17 runs. How about that?
Yeah, well, DJ LeMahieu went nuts. What did he go, 4 for 4, 2 doubles and a home run, scored 4 runs. That Rockies offense, they can hit, I'll tell you that. If they can ever find pitching, they might get to 500, or something Colorado hasn't done in a while.
And as SBR Picks pointed out on Twitter, it was a short night for the Red starter, so that means more bullpen action coming up. Oh, my God, recipe for disaster.
Exactly, something to pay attention to in early start action.
Our play of the day winner was a sweat, 3-0 Marlins top of the 9th, and then let's bring a closer in a 3-run game. And he started 2-0 on every hitter. Next thing you know, the Pirates got the tying run on base.
Oh, it's just a worst feeling. You know, here you are, you're 3-0, cruising into the 9th inning, and then the 9th inning goes walk, single, walk. The bases are loaded without anybody out. You're like, come on, Ramos. And, of course, he's been a monster this year. He ends up getting out of the jam, 16th save without blowing one, so he's due.
Yeah.
But play of the day comes through. It's been a nice little run here, Pauly, and I'm glad we can make our viewers a little bit of scratch.
Oh, yeah, and Fernandez improves to 22-1 career at home. My God.
Yeah, that's Arrieta-like.
Yeah. Oh, great job there. Up next, big game breakdown. We're going to preview the NBA Finals. Can't wait for that. That's coming up with 2 baseball games on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRpicks.com.
Find the best tennis odds for each Grand Slam event. Research before you bet on SportsBookReview.com.
Time for big game breakdown. Remember, live odds, SportsBookReview.com. Here we go, NBA Finals. Cavs and the Warriors. Warriors minus 220. Take back plus $1.80 on the Cavs. LeBron averaged 35 points, 13 rebounds, and 8.8 assists in last year's finals. Iguodala's defense wore him down. He played 274 minutes in 6 games, an average of 45 minutes per game, but not the MVP of the series. Look at this graphic. I mean, the numbers punch to the face. I mean, look at just game 1, 44, 8, and 6, and just the huge numbers he put up in that series, Teddy. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, he's scoring 40 or 39 or more in 4 of the 6 games. He has double-digit rebounds in 5 of the 6. He has at least 8 assists in 5 of the 6. And he was not the MVP. The guy who was guarding LeBron won the MVP, which speaks volumes about what LeBron was asked. Number one, what he was asked to do on last year's team. And number 2, about how well Iguodala played in all aspects of the game. But you remember the series. Cleveland won 2 of the first 3 games. In the last 3 games, Golden State pretty much dominated. And over the course of those 3 games, the players other than LeBron went 58 of 162 combined from the floor, 36%, under 36%. That shows how impressive those 28 assists were in those last 3 games, passing to guys that simply couldn't shoot.
Then when they went to the death lineup, things really changed there. Bogut started, and they were down 2 games to 1. And it was the video. Hey, it's good to have a good staff. It was the video game, the video guy who told Kerr, hey, let's go to this small lineup. And then they blew him out 3 games in a row. Now, what does Kerr do here? And some of these matchups are fascinating. Will he play Green at the 5? And who does Love guard? This is where it really gets fun.
Yeah, I mean, and you remember what happened last year. Bogut started the first 3 games. The Warriors fell behind 2-1, and then Bogut was basically on the bench. The only time he got off the bench, I think he played 2.5 minutes in a blowout of Game 4. Now, we got the same matchup for the beginning. I mean, the key for Golden State, as you mentioned, they have that roster flexibility. Kerr can start Draymond Green at the 5 versus Tristan Thompson. He couldn't do that against Steve Adams in Oklahoma City. So there's definitely more flexibility for Kerr in this instance, but you just wonder, the fact that the Cavs are going to have to find places to hide people on defense with Kevin Love on the floor. Again, he only shot 5 of 16 from the floor in that 89-83 loss at Golden State on Christmas Day. He did have 18 rebounds. Then he shot 1 for 5 with only 6 boards. They only played 21 minutes in that really ugly blow. Was it 132-88, the blowout loss at home? But even that game, the Cavs were starting Timothy Mozgov at center at that point. So their lineup is different now than it was in those regular season meetings. So there's a lot of questions that we're going to look at Game 1 and think that they're answered. They might not be answered after Game 1 because we're going to see a series of adjustments in this series, each coach trying to make the adjustments to counter what the other coach did in the last game.
Yes. Now, also, big question for Love and a lot of the Cavs. They played 1 meaningful fourth quarter in over a month. It was Game 4 at Atlanta. And plus, Love sat out some of those fourth quarters in the Toronto series. So were they really tested by the Eastern Conference in the playoffs? And when's the last time Lou had to draw up a play in crunch time?
Well, he did in that Game 4 against Atlanta. But it's an interesting point because when you look at the matchups, first round, the Warriors played the Rockets. The Cavs played the Pistons. Neither team was tested. Second round, Warriors get the Blazers, and Cleveland gets the Hawks. Neither team is tested. Third round, both teams get tested a little bit, but you're going to ask me who faced a tougher competition. I mean, Golden State just rallied back from 3-1 against Oklahoma freaking City, whereas Cleveland, struggled against Toronto in those 2 games, the first 2 games in Toronto. No comparison between the Raptors and the Thunder. That's going to give me the concept that, hey, Golden State is much more battle-tested, and here in the postseason, they've certainly played a lot more meaningful fourth quarters, something that the Cavs and Tyronn Lue have yet to do.
I'll use Shaq's line. Kyrie Irving can't guard a fire hydrant. How did they hide him? You can't put him on Curry and Thompson. Do they put him on Iguodala? I mean, what do you do with Kyrie?
That's a good question. We're going to have to find out. That being said, the Cavs have to hide Kyrie somewhere. They have to hide Love somewhere. We may end up seeing those guys hide on the bench for a little bit more than we're used to.
Got to stagger.
But at the same time, Pauly, there's a question here because not only the Cavs had more time off, they also know that Golden State playbook. They've seen it. They played against it last year. It hasn't changed that much. Meanwhile, the Warriors are going to have to adjust to some looks that they have not seen before out of the Cavs.
I think they're going to have to stagger Love and Kyrie because the defense is so bad, and they're going to go to work on them.
And that's one thing the Warriors have been pretty good at doing.
Yeah.
Finding that one weak link on defense and exploiting it again and again and again. Pauly, series price, appropriately priced? You know, the big line is a 2-1. The Cavs are a 2-1 dog.
Yeah, it's cheap. It's cheap. Golden State's a good bet here.
I'm with you on that one. It
It's
would be
cheap.
Warriors or nothing for the series for me.
Here's a prop available too. Golden State to win Game 1 and win the series, -150. If you want to do that. Live odds against sportsbookreview.com. To baseball,
Let me just jump in real quick, Paul.
Yep.
Make sure that people know that this is just a series preview. We're going to preview Game 1 itself on tomorrow's Sports.
Yes, thank you. Rangers, Indians, Hamels, Bauer, $1.05, 8 the total. Hamels brings us a couple of key handicapping points today. How to deal with a box score that does not tell us a proper tale, but also how a pitcher reacts after his team let him down. He ripped the guys after his last start.
Yeah, kind of an interesting scenario here. Okay, here's the setup. All right, Cole Hamels in his last outing, he was pitching well. He was down 1-0, top of the fifth. He walked the leadoff batter, Sean Rodriguez. Jordy Mercer hits a routine ground ball to Mitch Moreland at first. It's supposed to be a 3-6-3 double play. But Moreland threw the ball in the left field. So now it's first and third with nobody outs instead of no one on and 2 outs. Well, the Pirates went on to score 5 runs in that inning. So we look at the stats afterward. You know, stat tracking. Hamels' bottom line could have been much better than it was. Obviously, we want to adjust for that. That being said, you talked about the mental state, and that really stands out. Hamels did not respond well to the error. He did not respond well after the game, and he took a swipe at his teammates. Quote, sometimes that happens. You're going to make a lot of pitches in games and not necessarily be good ones. It was a tough game just because of the fact that John Neese pitches really well, and we weren't able to get runners on base. And that's kind of been a problem for some key Rangers hitter, hasn't it, Pauly?
Oh, Fielder's been awful. You look at this graphic, you see what happened in 2015. You look at his numbers, 23 home runs and he hit 305. This year he's hitting a .194. He has 3 home runs. No player in MLB's had a greater decline. And now we're in June. But they have to be patient because he makes so much damn money. Meanwhile, the Indians have their fingers crossed that Bauer will become a pitcher instead of a thrower, Teddy.
Yeah, and this is a guy who's had highlight reel stuff as a pitcher throughout the minor leagues, throughout his college career. He was a monster at UCLA, and he's always been one of these potential when he's going to put together at the major league level. You know, maybe he got rushed. He had 4 starts in 2012 with the D-backs, and he was just 21 years old. But this year, right now, Trevor Bauer showing improvement in 2 places that come with experience. The walk rate is down. The ground ball rate is up. When you learn to pitch to contact and get ground ball outs instead of throwing the ball past hitters, that's when you're becoming a pitcher and not just a thrower. It's worth noting, Bauer's one of these guys who's been working with the top advanced metric trainers for years, a real workout warrior.
This game will be part of the play of the day coming up in the deep dive. Rays, Royals, Archer against Duffy. Royals $1.10, 7.5. It's early, but what are we doing with the great stuff that Duffy's had lately?
Yeah, and Duffy's another guy that's like Bauer, you know. The minor league numbers were great. He was a top prospect, and he got to the bigs and just didn't live up to expectation. And he's been around a couple more years than Bauer. And this year, you know, he opened the season in relief. He's still only thrown 30.2 innings. But you look at the numbers. The ERA's way down. The fielding and pitching's way down. The strikeouts per 9 is up. The walks per 9 are down. The swing strike percentage, 16.9%. And let me just show you what that 16.9% swing strike percentage means. Top pitchers in baseball, let's see. Duffy, number 1. Clayton Kershaw, number 2. Jose Fernandez, number 3. Noah Syndergaard, number 4. Matt Scherzer, number 5. Duffy ahead of all those guys in swing strike percentage. That, Pauly, is a meaningful stat. It's worth noting that he's not going deep into games. You know, so far, 3 starts, he's only faced 50 batters. That being said, he's only given up 10 hits and 2 walks. 48, then 63, then 76 pitches in those 3 starts. He's doing his best to build back up his stamina so he can last a little bit longer.
We had a winner last week going against Archer, and with that loss to the Yankees, he dropped to 3-6 with a 4.60 ERA. Pitched well in that game. A-Rod took him deep, and so did Beltran, but he worked 8 innings, and he hadn't finished the 7th in his first 10 starts. As many Ks as hits, and walks allowed. So maybe he's starting to figure it out here. Good game coming up later tonight. Up next, deep dive. AFC West. We continue Kansas City Chiefs, and we look to make it 7 of 8 with the play of the day on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
All right, deep dive. Yesterday, the Denver Broncos. Today, the Kansas City Chiefs. As we start with the AFC West, Chiefs are lined at over under 9.5 wins. Last year, 11-5 straight up, 8-8 ATS, 8-7-1 to the over, plus 14 in turnovers, second in the NFL, and only one of 2 teams, Patriots with Brady the other, to average less than 1 giveaway per game. But was the record misleading, Teddy?
Yeah, the record was completely fraudulent. Fraudulent's not the right word. They played the teams that were on their schedule.
But caught some breaks.
Yeah, they cut just a few breaks. And, of course, last year I had a big play on Kansas City over their season win total, in large part because of the schedule that they were facing. Look at them down the stretch. Remember, they started 1-5, and they got hot, really hot. How'd they get hot? They faced a bunch of easy opponents. They got the Steelers with Landry Jones. They got Denver in Manning's last game before his injury hiatus. Remember where he threw 4 interceptions and got benched? Every other team they faced while winning those 10 straight was either below average, Oakland, Buffalo, or legitimate bottom feeders. Your Clevelands and San Diegos and Baltimores and Detroits. Teams that were absolutely stinking up the joint. So, yeah, Kansas City was good, but even the playoff win against Houston was fraudulent. Brian Hoyer is no playoff caliber cornerback. When's the next time you see a Brian Hoyer caliber QB as a starter for a playoff team? So we give Kansas City credit for that success, but we put a big fat asterisk by that 11-win campaign. They weren't that good. They just faced the right teams at the right time.
Sure. You could see that coming when you looked at the schedule. Even after the slow start, you're like, my God, they might run the table. The schedule's so easy. And they did. And good Hoyer went Jake Delhomme in that playoff loss. He was hideous. 3 seasons under Andy Reid. They won 11, 9, and 11. 3 straight overcashes. Reid might be a buffoon in many regards. I mean, the clock management issues and the challenge flags, but his track record in the regular season stellar going back to his tenure in Philly. Mainstream stats, number 27 ranked offense, number 7 ranked defense. Alex Smith, quarterback rating of 95.4, 5th straight year at 89 or higher. He's Charlie Checkdown. It's a lot of dink and dunk, although he did average 7 yards per attempt. That was 14th in the NFL, Teddy.
Yeah, I mean, we think about Alex Smith as this bottom-tier game manager, and yet his teams win, and the stats, in retrospect, look pretty good. That 95.4 QB rating last year. Again, he's been in the 90s 4 times in the last 5 years. And the other year he was at 89. We complain about that dinking and ducking. Look, he averaged more yards per pass attempt last year than Aaron Rodgers, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Matthew Stafford, all these guys with these huge arms. Alex Smith had more, and he has that mobility. So while he's a QB that we like to make fun of, Paul, he's been really effective for that team, and he might be, one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the NFL, even though he's dumping off the ball. Where's Travis Kelce? We better find him.
Yeah.
Because
yes.
that's, the only
personnel
guy
moves.
To on a regular
did a nice job of keeping their own guys. They re-signed Tamba Ali, Derek Johnson, linebacker, and defensive end Jay Howard. They added Mitchell Schwartz to play right tackle, an upgrade over Donald Stevenson. We told you yesterday they lost him to Denver. They did lose Sean Smith and Jeff Allen, 2 quality starters. Phillip Gaines back from a torn ACL to start on the other side of Marcus Peters at quarterback. Tell us about these special teams, though.
Yeah, I mean, we brought up a little bit about special teams on yesterday's Sportsman, and I want to talk about it more. When you have good special teams, it's going to make your stats look worse. Because what happens is that let's say you have a good return game. All right, you're gonna be on a shorter field. You're gonna have less offensive yardage. Let's say you have a great punter. You're gonna have longer fields when the opponents have the football. That means there's gonna be more defensive yardage allowed. So great special teams, I always look for them, and I always try to emphasize these are teams that the stats are gonna lie a little bit. Their offensive and defensive yardage numbers are not going to equate with how good they are because they're winning the field position war. Look, Cairo Santos, he's a good kicker. may not be the best kicker in the NFL. He's a good kicker. 4 of 8 from 50 plus last year. Of course, they got a cold quit at punter. Net close to 41 yards per punt. KC consistently wins the field position war, and the fact that they do that helps make their stats look perhaps not as good as they realistically should be.
AFC West, they get the AFC South and NFC South this year. A lot of bottom feeders: Tennessee, Jacksonville, Tampa, and New Orleans, Atlanta, all expected to be below average teams. 2 extra games, Jets and at Pittsburgh. Not a tough schedule, I'd say average, but 2 Sunday night games and no Monday Night Football, which is a disappointment because that Arrowhead's always rocking and a great home field advantage.
Yeah, KC doesn't get those Monday night games anymore. Not many of them. You know, they did get some TV time after last year's playoff season, but 2 Sunday night games, no Monday Night Football. So let me talk about those extra games for a minute, because the schedule's 14 of the 16 teams that every squad faces are predetermined. You have your divisional opponents, home and home with each of them. That's 6 games. Then there's 2 divisions that you play, and as you mentioned, it was AFC South and NFC South from the AFC West this year, with a bunch of weaker than expected or weaker than average teams in those divisions, which is good for Kansas City. The 2 extra games are the only ones that are based on last year's schedule. The Jets, the Steelers, that's not one of the tougher slates by any stretch of the imagination. Kansas City, yeah, they are right about the league average when it comes to strength of schedule.
What do you think now? So 3 straight years they've gone over. What do you think of 9.5?
9.5 is a little bit higher than I'm willing to bet, especially for a team that was as good as they were last year, in large part due to those scheduling weaknesses. So, again, this is not something that I'm running to the window to bet, but I can't bet KC over 9.5. My lean is towards the Chiefs under their season win total.
All right, the Raiders tomorrow. Now it's money time. Play of the day, looking to make it 7 out of 8. Betting number 966. Back to the Rangers and the Indians. We're taking Bauer and the Indians, $1.05. And we told you just how bad Prince Fielder's been. Well, 0 for 4 with a strikeout last night. And you don't attack good right-handers on the road if your best lefty bat is useless. Cleveland, the play of the day. Let's keep it going. A lot of fun. Game 1 tomorrow. We'll try to stay hot with the play of the day. Big show coming up on SportsBIT. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.